Sign. Hey,
Okay,
or we could have given you one of these too. but it's up
that's
to you.
fine. I speak
This
pretty
works.
loudly.
I'm going to take this round for if there's any Q&As for
Cool,
later.
cool. Awesome. So let me.
Data theorem, API security. This is great stuff. Right up our alley. Would be great for last time too. So,
Yeah, actually, I was talking to Dan about that. We just presented at CactusCon, which I love. If you guys been there over to Arizona, thanks to Alex. So, hi everyone. My name is Himanshu. I'm here from Data Theorem. My coworker Alex, Igor, and Dan. We're all here from a variety of parts of the United States. I'm from the West Coast. These guys are from Chicago. Alex is also from the West Coast. But thanks for having me. Excited to be back in Austin. Been to Austin actually 3 times this year. So I don't know if you guys are doing more in-person events than us out in the West Coast, but it's great to see people. Everyone online, it's great to see you as well. But I always like talking to people in person. So this talk is about API security, but it's about mobile and APIs. Before I begin, I do walk around a lot. So if someone can't see me online, I guess message Kyle and I'll come back to where I'm supposed to be. The other thing is my background. I think it's important when you talk to a speaker, especially in security, you should always know their background. We're all biased. So I started in security in the 90s. So when I was actually in school, so I didn't have any formal training. I just did immature things all the time. Nothing too bad. But I got my first professional job in security with this company called AtStake, which was a boutique AppSec company based out of Cambridge. And all we did was hack and pen test. And back at AtStake, I felt very proud of what we were doing and trying to make things more secure. And turns out people at AtStake, it was people like myself and hackers and people from the NSA. I found quickly that as I kind of moved up and got more mature with pen testing and talking to CSOs, chief security officers, that data breach and pen testing doesn't necessarily meet together. Like a pen test could find a really good vulnerability, but at least at the time, a data breach is 800,000 records, right? And what was happening, if you fast forward from 2004 to 2018, all these data breach still continue to happen, but our security programs are really designed for edge cases, which are very important because companies like credit card companies, you guys are being attacked, of course, but there's also a big middle ground that hackers go after just to get large volume of data. So that's what the idea about this talk is. And this talk is based on real events. Sound like a Netflix documentary. So because of my background, I still have connections to people who do interesting things. And so there's one hacker group that I noticed that was doing something very interesting with mobile apps and APIs. And that's the genesis of today's talk. So, so there's the background and kind of the foundation of the presentation. All right. So how to hack an API in 15 minutes or less. So 15 minutes. So if you are a hacker or were a hacker, 15 minutes is actually plenty of time. No one has the patience for more than 7 minutes if you're hacking, right? If you're doing a pen test, you have 2 people, 2 weeks. Of course, that's a lot of times, but hackers don't have patience. They have an agenda. They want to get in and out. So 15 minutes is plenty of time for a true hacker. And this happens quite often, still happening today. And I'll show you what's happening and how they're doing it. So before I get into the technical part or more technical part, I want to explain why 15 minutes, right? Like I said, hackers hack. They're in to get data. They're not in to like kind of talk about some sophisticated attack. Sometimes it's for fame. That's when I was much younger and immature. It's just to kind of show off. The other part is chaos, just to mess with people or entertain yourself. And then now, of course, it's all about money, right? And that's why there's no job shortage in security, and there's no loss to gain revenue out of here. But in terms of money, there's a lot of money that can be lost to data breaches, not just the fines, the data itself. But the hacker mentality, again, is in and out, get your data, go on to the next target, unless someone did something very evil to you. So if you were at a Honda dealership and they didn't give you the right oil change, you might have a incentive to go hack Honda no matter what. That happens, but most hackers will go after one site, see if it's vulnerable, go after another over and over. Now the different side of security, as we all know, is researchers, and that's where a lot of pen testers live, and that's where I used to live when I was with At Stake. It's intellectual stimulation. The reason why I put, if you see the screenshot, Dr. Dan Bonet, he's from Stanford. He's on our advisory board. Great guy, advises data theorem quite a bit. Now his students, I would say, are researchers. They're the smart kids in the room, whether it's Stanford or UT Austin, of course. Are doing it for more for intellectual stimulation, not for essentially data within 15 minutes. And so again, I come from the non-Stanford world. I come from the hacker world. And when I noticed these attacks happening online and I noticed everyone was missing them, it was a difference between technical intellectual stimulation versus data compromise. All right. So let me go off to the ladder. So Dan and his students at Stanford connected with a whole bunch of other universities and did this research paper about machine learning and how to defeat machine learning, right? You should read it. It has nothing to do with today's talk, but it's a really interesting way to defeat machine learning. And so what I'm showing you here is a stop sign where 4 pieces of stickers are on the stop sign, 2 white and 2 black. That is all it took to pollute a machine learning algorithm. So a self-driving car no longer saw this as a stop sign. That's it, right? It's a great research paper. I did not write it, so I'm not taking credit, but I'm just obviously amplifying it. But that's all it took. So if a self-driving car in this particular hack saw this stop sign, it would not stop. That simple. That's very, very interesting, right? Now, it took, what, 4 universities, a lot of brain power, a lot of research, a lot of machine learning hacks to pull this off, but they did it, and thumbs up to them. Now, what I would do, because again, I don't come from that background, I would just go with a stop sign in the middle of the road. So this is Southern California. So I'm from Northern California, but from Southern California, so this is Highway 101, probably like your 35 here, one of the main highways. And so here's me on the left with a stop sign on 101. And here's a Tesla, of course. And I'm not saying anything about Tesla. By the way, all the products in this presentation are just made up. None of it is taking a cheap shot at these fine organizations. But so what would happen if I stood on 101 with a stop sign and this white Tesla saw it? Anyone know? Before, let's say before I got ran over, right? Okay, I love that. Okay, before I'm shot or ran over, what would happen? What would the Tesla do? Probably stop, right? Yeah. So again, so if you think about it from a raw hacker mentality, why am I going to go to Stanford or UT Austin or all these other universities and do a machine learning hack just to show a stop sign is no longer a stop sign? That's for the smart kids in the room. If you're a hacker, you're going to go on 101 before being run over or before being shot and just have a stop sign. And you're going to mess with cars and mess with people. Why would someone do this? If you're asking the question why, you're asking the wrong question. No real hacker asks why. They just do it because they can, because this can be done. You're messing with people. Now, this is a little bit this is a little bit aggressive. Most hackers don't want to harm people and they don't want to harm individuals. So no one hopefully will do this who's a true hacker. But back in the day, you just do things because you can mess with people, right? Okay. So someone might say, hey, listen, hold on, right? You know, whether it's Tesla or Rivian or all these great self-driving cars, they might say, no, Tesla will figure out, right? Or anyone will figure out. They're on 101. Is 101 a road with documented stop signs on this particular intersection? No, it knows that. So when you, hacker, clown, sit there with a stop sign, it's going to know you're not real and everything's going to proceed correctly. Let's pretend that's true. So what about this situation, right? So while I'm living in California, I'm actually from the Midwest. So this is actually a highway near where I grew up. And so back in at least where I grew up in the Midwest, there was two seasons, winter and construction. So you would see construction people all the time, right? And they just like, there's not documented, it's not on Google Maps or Apple Maps. So here's a construction guy with a stop sign, right? So obviously a self-driving car needs to stop, right? So you can't just say, oh, we're only going to pay attention to documented stop signs. Construction happens, right? And so when a person, in this case, a construction worker is stopping you, the car must stop, right? So it shows that, hey, there is some ability to go out there and then mess with people. And the opposite could be true. It could be not a stop sign. It could be, again, me as a clown with a speed limit sign. Instead of a stop sign, a speed limit sign, and so on and so forth. So the idea is you want to hack, right? You want to mess with people. You're not there to kind of prove a problem. You're there to get data. So is API hacking a real problem? When I first started doing this presentation, I literally had to put that as a statement because this was 2018, 2017. Now, 5 years later, everyone knows APIs are a big attack surface. So it is a real problem, but let me talk to you how this all started. So again, back with my earlier connections, I noticed certain things were going on and I verified it, but this is Hacker Group. And they were going out and basically doing something very clever. So they would take a mobile app from the App and Play Store, reverse engineer it. And then at that point, there's two reasons why you reverse engineer an app. There's companies like Data Theorem and a whole bunch of good competitors who find security issues, right? We find security issues for your products. We help your developers fix it. That's one thing. These guys, they were reverse engineering mobile apps to find APIs, right? And if you see here on the screenshot, they weren't doing really any sophisticated hacking. They were just connecting to open APIs and extracting data from the server-side components. So here's an app on March 12th of 2019. Basically, it's again, I think at the time there's an election going on, but it was a very popular app in a lot of people's private information, voter information, and general just background profile information where they live, their phone number was open on the internet. So a data breach, right? Home, address, voter, political affiliation, all publicly accessible on this, whatever side you sit on, but on a side that, you might not want to have public, it's all there because there's no authentication on this API. So no real hack, right? That's not sophisticated, right? But very, very successful. Then 6 months later, another API with another app. So this one was actually in Australia. This is, I think, a social dating app called Get. And they had a search API embedded in the app. Again, no authentication. And you can see here with the quote, the name, email, date of birth this time, Facebook ID, phone numbers were all publicly accessible via the mobile app with an unauthenticated API. And then finally, this is where I knew something else was going on. This is not a coincidence. So December of last year, everything blurs together now with COVID. December of like 3 years ago, I guess 2.5 years ago, another app, Plenty of Fish, had an API response. So not a search API, but an API response, also publicly accessible. First name, zip code, and current location, right? Not great at all. So if you look at all three of these apps, if you come from the security community, this is not coincidence, right? So basically a hacker group, and I say hacker with a capital H, right? They were like, hey, why sit there, and be one of Dan Bonet's students who are intelligent and smart and try to defeat a machine learning algorithm to pull off some hack? Why don't we just download an app from the App Store, publicly accessible, decompile it? Maybe that's a little bit hard. It really isn't. Any kind of technical person can do it. And then look for APIs. And that's what they did. So if you look here, there's a quote about 6 months ago. So if you're an API security company or pen tester, one of the things you look for is something called BOLA, Broken Object Level Authorization. It's an authorization attack with APIs, very sophisticated, very awesome. However, it's not the #1 reason for data breaches in API. Literally authentication and the lack thereof is, right? And that's kind of my purpose of today's talk, is that all these hackers are getting away from very, very simple attacks. And I'm not saying BOLA and all these other attacks we should ignore. We should continue on them. But basics on API security is just not being done. And it's being abused right now, actually 3 years ago and today, as we speak, because it's just missing on the AppSec programs. All right. So now that I've kind of talked about the screenshots, how exactly did they do these attacks? So first, I want to say the examples, again, I show are all fake. Amazon's a great company, but I'm using Amazon's app as an example. So what we're going to do is we're going to download. Okay, cool. That's showing up. We're going to download an app from the App or Play Store. In this particular example, it's from the App Store. In this particular example, it's Amazon. It can be any app. And so what we're going to do is decrypt it. Now, everyone in this room and online probably knows there's nothing with step 1. Decrypting an app from the App and Play Store is not a technical bar. Now, there might be some DRM stuff with our good friends in Cupertino, Apple, but not really a big deal. Now, for your developers that you work with, they might think this step 1, there's only 4 steps, is hard or impossible. It's not, right? Decompiling an APK or disassembling an IPA is a standard for any kind of reverse engineer, and you don't have to be a strong reverse engineer. So here it is. So we're basically getting all the class files, all the strings from the Amazon app, and nothing unusual there. No real sophistication. All right, so that's step 1. There's a screenshot. It's step 1. Okay, now step 2. So our company, actually my coworker Ethan wrote this tool called API Hunter. And again, this mimics what the attackers were doing, right? So you point API Hunter towards the decompiled Amazon app. And when you do that, you'll get a list of all its APIs. So API Hunter is literally hunting for APIs. So here's step 2. I know it's small print for everyone here in the room. Sorry about that. So basically at the top of the screen, you see API Hunter to the decompiled app. In this case, it's Amazon. And all it's doing is it's enumerating the list of APIs, right? Again, not a very sophisticated step, but essentially what we're doing is building our attack surface. Whether you're a pen tester or a hacker, expanding and focusing on your attack surface is a good step. The smart ones do it, because if your attack surface is wide, your likelihood of success goes up, right? So that's what we're doing here. Before we get too far in, we're just making sure there's APIs to hack. Turns out, if there's one app like Amazon that has 3,000 APIs and another app that has 4, of course I'm going to go for the bigger one, right? Even if, unless I hate the one with 4 APIs, but again, you want the biggest attack surface as you possibly can. All right, so that's step 2. Step 3, this is the clever part. This is where, if you don't like hackers, I don't blame you, but you have to respect their trade. This is the clever part that they did. Again, they are, I would say, efficient. Some people will call them lazy. I will say efficient. Hackers want to get in and get out. They're not there to publish some research paper. So what they did is they decompiled all these apps. Might have been like 3,000 to 4,000 apps on the App and Play Store, maybe even more, depending on how much they automated. And then they sat on the data. They did step 1 and step 2, and they just sat on the data, right? Then when the app was released, again, let's say 3 weeks from now or 3 months from now, they did a diff. If you look at the bottom of the screen, they did a diff between the previous release and the existing release to find what we call shadow APIs. Shadow APIs are essentially new APIs that a security team may or may not know about. So let me kind of show that in step 3. Actually, here it is, yeah. Did I miss a step? Yeah, I did. Where's my, oh, here you go, step 2A. All right, now here's the clever part. So they're taking what we call shadow. So they're taking a binary. Let's say today's what, May 31st. Let's say there was a release of the Amazon app on, I don't know, March 31st. So 2 months from now. So they're going to take the build from March, compare it with May today, and do a diff to see the new APIs. Just the new APIs. Now, why would they only focus on new APIs, shadow APIs? Sorry? Untested, there you go, right? So it's untested. So again, why would I look at an API that the great and awesome Amazon security team has looked at for like maybe 7 years, maybe 7 days? I don't have time for that. Like, I'm a hacker. I want to make sure I'm looking at APIs that are not tested. So that's the clever part of this hacker group. That's how lazy / efficient they were. They were like, forget all those other APIs. We all know these big companies, small companies know what they know, and they pen test the heck out of what they know. But what about what you don't know, right? Now, in my particular world, again, I've been in security for 2 decades. You could say, well, wait, why mobile and not web, right? Web would have the same thing. Well, yeah, but the thing is that when you go in most organizations, mobile teams are like the Wild West, like every cowboy culture. They can do whatever they want, right? For some reason, mobile dev teams get away with more than web teams. Culturally, I think because everyone's trying to get money off the web, so you don't slow them down. So what this hacker group figured out is like, okay, let's go after mobile. Let's go after APIs, but let's go after shadow APIs. So what they did was very clever, and that's the 15 minutes. They only targeted new APIs because there were vulnerabilities they could have done in older APIs that were never hit, right? So if you look at all these apps, I just showed 3, and this, my whole analysis, there's probably like 40 or 50. So if you look at the 40 or 50 apps that had data breaches, none of the previously existing APIs were even modified, even though they were vulnerable. It was just the new one, because hackers know if it's new, the likelihood that an AppSec team has looked at it is probably pretty low, right? And so let's go after the new stuff, and it might be invisible. They might not even know it exists, right? So you might not be tripping off security alarms and stuff like that. All right, so then the final step is what I showed out of order is just connecting to these APIs, right? So actually, it's not the final step, but it's near the final step. So connecting to the API, and so you see everything here in green. Again, don't worry about the small print, but everything in green is a 200 OK, so a real connection, right? Now, for anyone who knows a mild amount of scripting, everything I've shown here is so quick. I'm splitting it up into 4 different steps for the presentation, but all this could be automated, right? From someone who's very young or very old, but all this, you could go to your real job during the day and come home and just see literally a list of 200 OK out there. And that's a target. Like, okay, today I found 300 APIs anonymously accessible on the internet. And then the final step is just hack, extract the data, right? Now, this part of the everything I showed here in the video is technically accurate. This part is completely made up for demonstration purposes only. Just want to make sure that's said loud and clear. But when they connected, oops, that's not the right one. Okay, so here's us connecting to now a fake site with fake bad data. So you can see here, obviously I showed you with those articles that it actually happened, but you can see here, you can come home to a list of 3,000, 4,000 unauthenticated open APIs, shadow APIs found by the mobile app, and just go through them one by one and see what information is there. So in this case, you have last name, first name, all the things that you saw in those media articles. That's how simple and how sophisticated their attack was. And again, 45, 50 different organizations were hit. The 3 that I show were just in the media. But essentially, what they did to recap was decrypt mobile apps, pretty simple-ish. Do a hunt and diff, very simple. That's just a Python script. Connect, that's not even, that's just connecting to the API, and extract, right? And they hit for 35 to 40, or actually 45 to 50 organizations. And so if you look at it now, this is not small town, right? Like there's millions of APIs out there. They're embedded in mobile apps. Now, The reason why, again, they chose mobile, again, it's the cowboy culture because mobile gets to do what it wants. But if you're looking for APIs and you want to connect to them this simply, like again, I come from 2 decades of security. When I was much younger, when it was a network security world, you would access an IP access, right? And you would do a port scan, and then you'd find SSH and Telnet and do all these things. APIs are not that simple. You can't just find an API of a company, right? So for example, I'll pick on Kyle for a second. If I want to hack Visa, I can't just go and find Visa's APIs listed somewhere. I have to go to their web apps, reverse engineer those. I have to go to the mobile apps, find the APIs there. So it's not hard, but I'm going to go to the clients to find the APIs. So you could be like, well, are they pen testing the mobile app? No, 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 forget about the mobile app. I'm looking at the mobile app to find APIs because my attack surface is APIs. And there are millions of apps out there, therefore millions of targets. So this is a very rich attack surface that's kind of getting, in my opinion, missed. And the only reason why I say that, because the headlines aren't stopping, right? The headlines come out of some API that's essentially not authenticated or poorly authenticated, and then you have a large scale data breach. So if you look at BOLA, by the way, broken object level authorization, where one user can get the access of data of the other. So let's say that's done successfully. It's 1 or 2 or 10 users. If you're a CSO, you don't, I mean, we all know this, but it's not great. But if you have compromised 10 or 20 accounts via the BOLA attack, that is not a breach definition. Breach has to be hundreds of thousands of records. So a CSO doesn't have to disclose the BOLA attack, yet that's what we pen test night and day when it comes to API security. But when you come to a data breach, hundreds of thousands of records, that has to be disclosed per the law or many state laws. And that could happen with an anonymous API out there on the open internet, right? So that's why I kind of started this presentation to make sure people knew that, hey, these attacks are real and it could lead to a data breach, a definable legal issue rather than just a vulnerability issue. So anyway, here are some of the tools that we wrote to make this all happen. So API Hunter is basically a brute force tool for any API. So it'll essentially kind of try to comb the API for all gets and post methods, puts, deletes, and essentially tries to find as much as they can in terms of authenticated APIs. Igor, my coworker in the front row, will know more how this works, but essentially that's one of the tools we wrote. The other one is searching binaries for APIs. This is, if you don't know how to reverse engineer APIs, it's very simple, but this tool will help you do that. It's very common. It's not something too terribly hard to pull off. And then it results into API Hunter, which is finding those shadow APIs. Now, some bonus material that I wrote just 2 months ago when I was in Minneapolis is same idea, even though this part of the presentation is not API. One of the things Data Theorem does as well as cloud security. So we do a lot of cloud security research. So I'm not going to bore you with more slides, but the same idea is true for cloud, right? So it could be an Elasticsearch database. Where can I hack an Elasticsearch database, right? Amazon? No. I'm not going to go to Amazon and say, hey, where are all your Elasticsearch databases? It doesn't work that way. So where do I find the attack surface? In the mobile app, right? So I decompile. So hey, yo, in 2019, someone decompiled its app and it had an Elasticsearch database that was open to the internet. That's a cloud issue, not an API issue. The attack is principally the same idea, but the target is cloud versus API. Another one, KidsGuard, Alibaba. So probably a Chinese app, but essentially cloud storage in Alibaba was made publicly available via a mobile app called KidsGuard. TV Smiles, AWS cloud storage, goes on and on and on, right? So it does not end, right? So very, very cool attack. I have to give the hackers applause, but some might call it too simple. But the thing is, there's a lot of good information embedded in your web apps, yes, but also in your mobile apps. And the reason, again, I chose mobile, because if you go look at culture, that's the team that's usually the untouchable team. They get to do whatever they want in most organizations versus all the controls that a web app has to have. So yeah, this is one from last year. Yeah, same idea. Now, so here's, I'm gonna make it a little interactive. So here's an attack where we found cloud keys. So again, we're moving away from API, could be an API token, but we found cloud keys. Now, if everyone can look at this list, there's 3 keys we found in this mobile app, right? You'll see them here on the left side or on the right side. Which ones do we all think is a problem? Igor? You know the answer. He's cheating. Anyone else that's not data theorem? Exactly. Yeah. The one that says password. So it's kind of a trick question. Number 1 and number 2 are the problem. So secret password obviously is bad. Now, again, if you come from the academic research side, that password has been embedded in the mobile app, and that can be used to authenticate to the mobile app and get access to data. Obviously very bad, right? Number 2, there is an API key that can be used to basically connect to cloud storage to basically breach hundreds of thousands of data, right? And then number 3 is a Twitter API key. This can take the Twitter API key, connect to Twitter, and get public information. Boring, right? So this is a great example of the problem. As many security, I don't have a pointer, many security pen testers will say, of course, this is a problem, and it is. This one is a data breach. If your CSO, he or she, can get in trouble, this one, it's not a false positive, but it's a no risk issue, right? So that's kind of my plea, like, hey, these keys, some of them are snooze fest, not even important because it's public data. Some of it will get us fired because it's a data breach, and some of it obviously looks really bad, right? And that's what these hackers know, right? All this information is embedded in the mobile app, and they have the patience to go and find and connect, versus maybe someone would just stop at the first one. I know I have. I used to do it all the time. Like, oh, that's the issue. Let's move on, right? Because you have another customer to worry about, right? But we have to make sure those cloud keys are being connected to, because attackers are doing it themselves. So yeah, here's the keys. So okay, so to wrap up a little bit before we take questions, solutions, right? So the good thing is there's a lot of solutions right now, right? That you can take care of. Some of it, if not all of it, is blocking and tackling, but it's still there. So my first plea is not to go and try to authenticate all your APIs. Definitely that's the second step. The first step is shadow, right? Is know what you don't know. And you could say, well, that sounds easy, but in the I don't know, in the generation of cloud and mobile, where developers and developers have just a lot of control. You know, developers can basically start a Lambda function without any admin privileges. Developers can open up a S3 bucket that can have an API without any permission. So my request of security programs, even though it sounds boring, have a shadow part of your program. How do we find out what the developers are doing? By going outside in, right? Everyone has a spreadsheet that says, oh, here's all our assets, and we love that, but go outside in as well. And, you know, if it was just a network security world, you would just, you know, basically port scan your partial class B or class C. You have to do the same thing, is find those APIs and make sure they're inventory. They might not even be insecure, but you got to find those APIs outside in, and also those cloud resources. Then step 2, once you find them, make sure those unauthenticated APIs should be unauthenticated, right? And I love every developer out there, but if a developer tells you it's supposed to be unauthenticated, don't believe them, right? Just go and check. Connect to the API, see what's data's there. Connect a year later, see if it's the same data, or maybe now the app has been upgraded, so now it takes credit card numbers or something like that. So connect to those APIs, find those keys and tokens in your mobile apps, right? Also your web apps, right? But they're definitely in mobile. And then and analyze this for daily function. So this last part is really, you know, data breaches. To prevent data breaches, which is a legal term, hundreds of thousands of records that are still happening, you got to analyze for PII daily. So of course, do pen testing and all that stuff. I highly applaud that, but there also has to be a whole program to saying, okay, how can large volumes of data be breached? It can be breached for your APIs. And these 4 steps are hopefully mitigate some of that. All right. So here are the tools, if anyone's interested, that you can play with. Again, my coworker who actually is from Texas, but was not here today, Ethan, he's the main author of these tools. Igor, my coworker here, can get access to those as well. At that point, or at this point, let me stop and take any questions.
One of these?
Yeah.
I'm looking at this API security for dummies. It's pretty cool. And I was thinking if people online might be able to also get it.
Yeah.
Everybody in person did.
Let me show on the camera. So yeah, so this API Security for Dummies book, we actually co-authored it. And one of our other competitors, Salt Security, stole our idea. So don't take theirs, but no. But no, it's a really good book because it talks about security principles. So even though I'm old school, I still talk about security principles: authentication, authorization, availability, encryption, and auditing. And so that's what this book is all about. So it's the foundation of API, and it does hacking as well, but it also talks about the blocking and tackling. So if you do need a copy, you can come to our website, and I think you can get a free copy there, right? Yeah, you can get a free copy at our website. Yeah, you have to give up your email address, but we promise to take care of that. Yeah. Turns out no one verifies that email address, so you can go ahead and get it. Otherwise, we'll make it available as well without a sign up as well. It's a good book. It's a good foundation book. And you know, the reason why, even though I don't like calling people dummies, but the reason why we partnered with them is, again, many moons ago in 2017, 2018, API was kind of one of those things that we saw growing up in the cloud, but people were still like, oh, I test my web apps, I test my mobile apps. Why do I need to test my APIs? Like, right? Like, why do I need to have a separate program? You know, honestly, it'd be great if we did it, but because you can see this hack, you can have a very strong and secure mobile app or web app, and the API could be just open out there, just like a database, you know, 20 years ago with SQL Server. So yeah, this can be available for free.
Actually, I had a question, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand the word shadow versus when you do a diff, wouldn't it be just new APIs? Is the shadow meaningful that I'm missing?
No, great question. So the question is, why do we call it shadow versus new? And what we're trying to say is shadow is unknown or unauthorized. So if it's new and someone knows about it, we're honestly like, okay, cool. But what happens when it's new and no one knew about it, or it was unauthorized, that's what we call shadow. It's also kind of called drift detection. Like one feature or one thing that we talk about, let's say you're an AWS shop and all of a sudden you have APIs that are from GCP and they're all secure. But like what? No, we're an AWS shop. So someone put their credit card down, went to Google, and it's secure. But as we all know, it's secure today. 3 months from now, when no one's looking, that's when we get popped. So that's what we're trying to say is shadow, which is like someone did something unauthorized, and the security team is not aware of it. So that's our definition. Good question.
So sort of sounds like the old joke, your developers have credit cards, you're in the cloud.
Yeah, that's such a true statement, right? Yeah. And
Any
now
que-
with on that note, it's with Lambda. I'm not sure if everyone, our company got the Lambda virus about 4 years ago. Great. So Lambda or serverless, it's developers love it, CFOs love it, cost goes down, developers friction or lack of friction goes up. And so it's a good thing for technology, but for security, now you literally can have a function without any layer 3 and just an API out there without a developer really writing any code in like seconds, right? So serverless, I think, is going to take off quite a bit, and it's good for technology, but for security, it's a big headache because we almost have very little control at that point.
Do we have any questions, or did somebody come online? I saw a picture pop up. Does someone have an online question? Let's see if we can actually take them from online too. Yeah, unfortunately, I can't see the chat. So
Oh yeah, I have the chat up. Yeah, if you have questions online, if you want to put in the chat channel, I'll say hi, so you can kind of see.
oh, another one here.
Yes, sir. Oh, thanks for the presentation, by the way. It's just awesome, especially on the Shadow API side. Now, Shadow IT has always been a problem, decades old. Now, it really does feel like an awareness campaign that, hey, Shadow API is a thing. My question is aren't the pen tests of today not covering Shadow APIs at all? Or
So yeah, the question is, so Shadow Shadow IT has been a thing. Are pen tests kind of looking for Shadow APIs? I think they are. I honestly, I do. It depends on what kind of pen test. I think if you all, I don't know what side people live on, but if you're the customer and hiring pen testers, you should ask about coverage. And I think the good companies are saying, hey, we want you to test our APIs, of course, but we also want you just to tell us what your attack surface was, right? So one thing that we and many other companies do, we always list out our coverage, because in my world, one of the first 5 questions I'll get is like, what's your false positive rate? And I'm like, us and every other vendor, honestly, have figured that out. It's what worries me is false negatives, right? What is it that is out there that we aren't testing? That concerns me. So I think the good pen testing shops ask for that and inventory that. In fact, at least out west in Silicon Valley, there's so many startups that are just doing what we call ASM, attack surface management, which is just inventorying your attack surface. Now, it's nothing different than Shadow IT, right? But the problem, growing problem, is our IT assets are in the cloud, and our cloud is no longer VMs, it's all applications. So you have to take that same IT, it's like, okay, let's inventory our VMs and our devices. But when there's no VMs anymore, it's just a bunch of cloud and containers that go up and down. It's like the Netflix model. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Netflix environment looks very different than 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And so that's the problem. Things go up and they go down. So I think what happens is that, Shadow IT, that idea needs to bring what we call shadow apps. Like, what are the apps that you don't know? And like, again, credit card, GCP, and all of a sudden you're up and running with possibly production data, right?
anything more? More questions?
All right.
All righty. Well, thank you for doing this. This is a great presentation.
No
Great
problem.
split on APIs.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, everyone.
And that will wrap up our OWASP Austin May meeting. See us back in June with Tiana leading it this time. I will be out of town, so it happens. So thank you all for attending. Thank you for coming back to the first one we've had in so very long. Great to see some faces. And hopefully see you all and some other people I recognize online. Hopefully they'll come join us too. So thanks anyways. Thanks, Al. Thanks for doing